Good afternoon. My name is Maureen Dumas, and I am the Vice President of Advancement and University Relations at Johnson & Wales University. Thank you so much for joining us for President Bernardo-Sousa's campus address. We are excited to bring this program to you. Before we get started, I'd like to review a few housekeeping items. Please shut down any other programs or applications you may have running to avoid technical glitches. If you have questions for the presenter, please add them to the Q&A section. They will be answered at the conclusion of the program. The chat feature can be used to message our presenter and other attendees. Please also note that this meeting is being recorded. I would like to extend a warm welcome to our alumni and friends. We wish we could be together in person, but we are thrilled to be connected virtually. It is my pleasure to start the program and introduce our new campus president, Dr. Bernardo-Sousa. Since its founding in 1914, Johnson & Wales University has been led by strong leaders who are deeply committed to our mission of providing an exceptional education for our students. Marie Bernardo-Sousa has spent a 30-year career in higher education at Johnson & Wales University. Marie has had progressive responsibilities at JWU that include Director of Academic Services, Vice President of Student Services, University Registrar, and Senior Vice President of Administration Enrollment Management. In March 2019, she was appointed Providence Campus President. With a keen commitment to the student experience, Bernardo-Sousa has a long history of fostering collaboration among departments and across JWU's multi-campus system to facilitate the creation and revision of policies and operational efficiencies and improvements. Bernardo-Sousa holds a doctorate in law and policy from Northeastern University, a Master of Science degree in Human Resources from Emmanuel College, and a Bachelor of Science degree in Marketing from Johnson & Wales University. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Bernardo-Sousa.
Thank you, Maureen. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining me today. I hope you and your families have been staying safe and well. This has been a challenging year for all of us as we work to prioritize and balance an approach that safeguards our community. And I want to take a moment and acknowledge the impact COVID-19 has had on so many of the industries we serve, in the hospitality arena, sports, entertainment and event management, and small and large entrepreneurial ventures in food and retail. These are not easy times, but there is one thing we know about JWU alums. They are unflappable and always rise up to the challenge. These are certainly uncharted waters, but with patience, a strategic mindset, a great deal of flexibility, we are endeavoring to meet the challenges posed by COVID-19. Our students are back on campus, and we're tackling the semester head-on together. In the spring, we transitioned to remote learning. We sent our students home and refunded room and board in addition to tuition when their courses were actually canceled for the spring term. The federal government did provide federal CARES dollars to support students and the institution. As a university system, Johnson & Wales received $14 million for institutional support, and $7 million was given directly to our students. Students applied for these dollars and they were awarded to them in June. Although the CARES dollars support was much appreciated, it did not mitigate the financial loss the university suffered in the spring. Since March, over 100 people at the Providence campus have been working diligently to create scenarios for the reopening in the summer and the fall. The work culminated in reopening plans submitted to the governor's office for review by the Department of Health and the Department of Education. The plans were accepted and shared with other colleges and universities as a model for future submissions. Some of you may know this summer we hosted over 500 culinary lab students on our campus to allow them to complete their spring term, which abruptly came to a halt in March. This pilot gave us an opportunity to assess the practices we put in place, identify where we might have some gaps, and how to manage students who may need to test or quarantine or isolate due to COVID-19. During the summer, I'm pleased to share with you that we had 0 positive cases. The summer was a testament to our planning and the fortitude of the faculty and staff. Our students were compliant with the code of conduct. They learned a lot, managed to have a little bit of fun along the way. And of the students who were in our labs over the summer, 77 were able to complete their degree and become official JWU graduates, and now join your ranks as alumni. We're so proud of our students who persevered with grit and determination. Initially, for the fall, we anticipated having 5,000 students back to campus. But as we continued to learn more about the virus and the increased spread across the country, we made a decision to de-densify our campus to support the safe completion of the fall semester, allowing our students with hands-on coursework to remain on track to meet their educational goal. This fall, we invited close to 2,400 students to come to campus for face-to-face courses. We have approximately 1,500 students living on campus. To give you a comparison, our campus traditionally accommodates over 3,200 students in residence. This allowed us to account for our first-year students and students enrolled in experiential-based courses, which includes students enrolled in culinary, our baking and pastry program, engineering and science-based programs, our equine, and other lab-related courses. We have close to 2,500 students learning remotely, many of whom plan to come to campus and are now living in the surrounding community. The campus is definitely quieter, but it is clear to me that our students want to be back on campus and engaging with faculty and peers in a meaningful and productive way. The experience of our first-year students that they're having this semester is very different from what they could have imagined or what you may have experienced as a first-year student on campus. Over the next few minutes, I'll provide you with an overview of our plan, what we learned thus far, and how we're preparing for the spring semester. Of course, I have to offer one caveat. Any plans for the future are subject to change. That is likely one of the most important lessons we've learned. We need to have plan A, plan B, and be ready to pivot on a minute's notice to adjust to the regional and national conditions. Change is the one thing that I am absolutely certain of, as so many of our decisions are informed by state and federal requirements and recommendations on COVID-19. In all of our planning, the health and well-being of our students has remained our top priority, and we are taking every measure we can to keep the campus safe. This fall introduced so many changes to the institution. We moved from our term system to our semester model, opening up more opportunities for our students for exchanges, internships, and spending more time on course content. Undergraduate students are typically, in a semester model, enrolled in 5 courses. This fall, 2 of those courses were going to be taught remotely, and 3 of the courses would be delivered synchronously or on campus, which means when our students were on campus and they were taking their 3 courses, they were able to remote in if they needed to and take the course from their residence hall or take the course in their class. Our students are able to take their classes in almost any setting. Our faculty have been tremendous in adapting to this high flex, hybrid model. In any academic classroom where we had more than 20 students, that course was split by the faculty member, with half the class attending one day in person and the other half attending on the other day, allowing us to really de-densify building occupancy. As I mentioned, all our first-year students were invited to campus, and this was an important first step in helping support these students and acclimating them to the rigor of the college experience. It's critical that we get these students off to a good start in college by connecting them with their peers, faculty members, and support structures that help ensure the success of a first-year student. As I mentioned, most of our first year students were enrolled in a combination of remote and in-person classes. Most had an English class, a math class, and an intro class that were all taking place face-to-face. We've asked students to maintain the same work groups and whenever possible to sit in the same seats, and our faculty members have been diligent about taking attendance. Students that are taking classes face-to-face also have a mix of classes. Some are being offered remotely and others are not. Students do not have all of their classes face-to-face. It's important to note that only 36% of our courses are being taught in person. The rest of our courses are being taught remotely. This flexibility provides an opportunity for us to promote social distancing, keep our faculty and our students safe. As we prepared for the academic year, academic leadership and facilities reviewed all of our classrooms, including labs, to ensure that we could practice social distancing and maintain strong safety protocols that support the well-being of our community. The College of Food Innovation and Technology has also updated its gold standard in food safety practices to address COVID-19. Bridget Sweet, our Executive Director of Food Safety, is spearheading those efforts. Some of you may have participated in her session, Fact versus Fiction, JWU Alumni Protecting Public Health and Preserving the Restaurant Experience on August 4th. Over the summer, JWU invested heavily in enhancing over 80 of our classrooms so that faculty would have more technology, including touch screens at podiums for classes that were being split, the ability to live stream their lectures so folks who were watching from a residence hall or off campus wouldn't miss anything. Students who were scheduled to have classes on campus but preferred to work remotely, we were able to work with them individually and make those adjustments to ensure their success on campus. However, as you can imagine, in some of our programs, it's really hard to do. In our culinary, our baking and pastry program, and our equine program, it's difficult to create a remote schedule that helps keep students on track to graduation. So those students have been on campus. For courses being offered remotely, there's at least one synchronous session per week. Many faculty hold both sessions synchronously. Others use the alternate session in different ways, allowing students to do group work, adding materials that students need to work on during the week that doesn't require them to actually be in person in class. Faculty are still holding office hours. Mostly, they're in the virtual format. Other services such as tutoring and library, working with a librarian on a research project, academic counseling, experiential ed, career services are available to students regardless if they are on campus or learning remotely. Should a student miss a class for any reason, they can work with the faculty to ensure that they don't fall behind. I'm sure many of you recall how hard our faculty work with students to keep them engaged and motivated to learn. This is a core value we did not want to stop during this time. We also made a decision to front load much of our coursework. Our semester, our fall semester, will actually conclude face-to-face learning on November 20th. Students will go home for Thanksgiving break and complete the rest of their semester remotely. Clearly, keeping our campus safe is everyone's responsibility. There is messaging and reminders about caring for the health and abiding by safety requirements for the health of others. To help ensure the well-being of our campus, faculty and staff are not only required to wear a face mask or a face covering, but they also have been asked to carry their JWU ID and make it visible at all times, as our campus will be closed to most visitors. We're modeling the behavior for our students each and every day. Our students have really been rock stars throughout this process, complying with the COVID protocol and working to keep the community healthy. We've asked our community members to work closely with the State Department of Health. They have an application called Crush COVID Rhode Island that helps us all manage our daily contacts in case one of us is exposed or noted as being a positive COVID case. The university also created its own screening tool, which we're asking staff, faculty, and students to use on a daily basis. We asked our summer students to begin using this before their arrival on campus, and system-wide we saw a high degree of compliance. This really demonstrates our students' commitment to maintaining a healthy campus. The tool is available, and most of our students and staff are looking for a green check mark. So as they answer the questions, you can come to campus when you receive a green check mark. If you receive a red X, it requires the student to contact health services and for staff and faculty to connect with their supervisor and their healthcare provider. Students who forget to complete their daily screening application receive an alert from the university, along with a reminder that they should complete it each day to protect the campus community. Our health services team actually contacts any student who has received a red X on a given day that has not taken the time to reach out to their office. Testing, as you have heard, is such an important tool in our toolkit. In coordination with the Department of Health, we've instituted an aggressive symptomatic testing for students. A student who presents a red X after consultation with health services will most likely be tested. Testing is available on campus in our health services office. Additionally, when we see that cases are linked, we may test a larger group or pool. A good example of this is the recent outbreak at Providence College. It impacted the Elmhurst neighborhood, and this spurred sentinel testing for all of our off-campuses who live in that neighborhood. We tested over 300 students, and fortunately, we've only had 6 positive cases from that testing. As you can imagine, there's so many new protocols that we've introduced to our campus. Activities and our schedules on campus look incredibly different. Most of the support services, as I mentioned earlier, are being offered both virtually and in person. This helps us manage density in our buildings, similar to our decision to invite fewer students to our campus. Signage throughout our campus promotes healthy practices that help support the overall well-being of the campus, such as hand washing, screening reminders before walking into buildings, elevator etiquette, physical distancing, and recommendations on how to best navigate the campus and the building. Some physical changes in the spaces have also occurred in our high traffic service areas. Plexiglass has been installed as a barrier, as well as stations throughout the campus provide students with the flexibility of wipes or hand sanitizer. We adjusted all of our air filters to high efficiency air filters, and they've all been installed to support strong air filtration. In our dining halls, takeout meals and limited seating is being offered. In addition, we introduced mobile ordering systems to select locations on our campus. We continue to maintain really strict safety measures in food service areas because it is a top priority for us. As I mentioned, the student experience looks very different and feels different this year. Starting with the fact that we have fewer students on campus, the reduction in occupancy helped support physical distancing practices and allowed us to offer over 66% of our rooms as single sleeping quarters. So not a lot of roommates on campus this year. Any room that has a double or has a roommate has ample space to support physical distancing. Due to state requirements, many students needed to quarantine for 14 days before classes began. Students began arriving on our campus as early as August 10th. All resident students received a return to campus guide, the conduct COVID protocol, and masks when they arrived on campus. We've instituted a very strict visitor policy, and we're encouraging our students not to travel on weekends due to interstate travel restrictions. This is admittedly very difficult to monitor and control, and students are also being advised not to frequent bars and nightclubs and to limit social gatherings. In the state of Rhode Island, our social gathering limit is 15. This past spring, we were pleased to learn that students will take full advantage of virtual programming, and we continue to offer many of our signature events virtually, and we're also offering some of those in person. Students can still participate in Wildcat favorites, such as the Student Involvement Fest, which was so successful during the first week of school. We actually had to add another one. Bingo, paint night, leadership workshops, and much more. As an added bonus, the ability to provide programming virtually allows our students to interact with their peers from the branch campuses, which has really been a great resource for all of us. Our fitness centers are open. We're following the guidance provided by the state of Rhode Island. However, we're only allowing enrolled students to be able to access the fitness centers. There's a process in place for students to make appointments, making it as easy and seamless as possible, but allowing also for us to have mechanisms in place for good contact tracing. As for athletics, the GNAC conference canceled the fall season, and at the moment, we anticipate that a winter season is highly unlikely. We're hearing a lot of conference rumors that we're going to try to merge fall, winter, and spring, all into the time period of March through June. So we'll see how that works. Our head coaches are working with students individually to maintain their competitive edge. We also made the difficult decision to discontinue several programs to support the long-term sustainability of Wildcat athletics. Many of our service areas, student academic and financial services, experiential ed, tutoring, accessibility, are offering a mix of virtual and face-to-face appointments, allowing us to offer more just-in-time services. In addition, we recently rolled out a solution that allows all students to remotely access our computer labs. Specialized software needed for classes, which was previously available only on lab computers, is now accessible to our students from their homes on their personal devices 24/7. Students can see which lab computers are available and what software is installed on them so they can choose the right machine for their needs. While we were deeply disappointed that we were unable to invite all of our undergraduate students to campus for the fall semester, we remain committed to our mission to deliver an exceptional education to all of our students. As a leadership team, we need to be nimble and transparent, making decisions as new information is presented. We need to tap into experts outside of higher education to make sure we fully understand the impact of our policies and practices as we try to navigate this time. The JWU education model is strong and could be adapted to virtual learning very, very quickly. But we were so fortunate that several years ago, the university made significant investments in the technical infrastructure necessary to support a robust online education model. That technical infrastructure was so important. But even more important was our ability to equip faculty with the necessary tools to provide a quality and engaging remote experience. So many of our faculty were teaching in the online environment that it made our ability to transition into the spring as remote learners so much easier. But even after that transition, we took a moment and just paused and decided we needed to survey both our students and our faculty so that we could understand more about their spring experience. We learned a lot from that survey. We were able to provide our faculty with additional workshops to support engagement in the remote environment. And we also created some tools to help our students with transitioning to remote learning. One of the biggest lessons we learned is there's no such word as can't. We learned that we could be creative and transition a great deal of our course content to a remote environment. It was transformational to see our faculty working hand in hand with our instructional design folks who were able to build really engaging and meaningful classroom environments in the virtual space. We also learned that communication had to be clear, constant, timely, and easily accessible. We had to employ every medium at our disposal in order to get our message across. One of our most successful efforts was having Facebook chats with small parent groups and student groups, just to ensure that people were having the time and the opportunity to ask their questions that were most pressing. We found our students will rise to the occasion and be an active part of the solution. They are holding each other accountable, and they are holding the university accountable. I think I mentioned earlier the importance of having multiple plans. I think for the opening of the fall, we had about 6 plans and finally agreed on our plan that we launched this fall. We're also working closely to figure out what does the spring look like. Certainly want all of our students to have hands-on courses back on our campus. We will also invite all of our new students back to campus, but we want our seniors to really enjoy their spring semester on our campus, so they will also be invited back. As you can imagine, the financial impacts of preparing for a COVID world has been profound. There were significant losses in the spring. Our decision to limit who we invited back to campus and to de-densify housing was a significant financial decision, but it was the right decision to keep our campus community safe. Before we transition to questions, I want to take the opportunity to remind you that as members of the JWU community, we need you to help tell our story to your neighbors, your colleagues, and others. This has been a year filled with surprises. And through it all, it has been clear that we are a supportive campus that's hyper-focused on our educational mission. We have demonstrated that there is nothing we can't do or accomplish when we put our minds to it. Our campus has reopened, and we will meet the challenges ahead with Wildcat spirit. I want to thank you for your ongoing support. I'm confident we will persevere through these challenging times and take care of our broader community. We will be opening up the program to your questions, and I'd like to introduce Provost Billy O'Clair and Chris Howard, our Director of Emergency Management. They have been solid leaders in the planning and the execution of all of the multiple plans that we have. And I also want to welcome Laurie Zabata, who is our Director of Alumni Relations, who will moderate the Q&A portion of the program. Laurie?
Thank you, Marie. I appreciate that. So we'll be starting off the Q&A session. So if you have questions, if you could please put them in the Q&A section at the bottom of your screen. You could just type them in right there. That's where we will pull them from. We do have one that we could start with from Tom. Are there any plans for bringing clubs and groups back to an in-person model? For example, how are you handling groups such as the Collegiate Ambassador Team?
Great question. Sorry, I was on mute for a minute. We are allowing clubs and orgs to meet in person. They do have to follow the social gathering minimum requirements. So Right now, it's limited to 15 people. However, a lot of our clubs and orgs have been doing a lot of work virtually and finding great success. We've also found our clubs and orgs meeting in green space, outside, outdoors, designing the space and the programming so that it allows for the appropriate physical distancing and allows them to stay connected. So they are coming back to campus. They are finding a lot of success, and we're asking them to work with our student engagement team who can really guide them through that process depending on what their outcomes are. For our collegiate ambassador team, I know we have reinstituted our admissions tour, so we're thrilled about that. So far, attendance has been sparse, but I think that's because there's so many complexities with now visiting the state of Rhode Island.
Thank you. The next question is, what was one thing that was a surprisingly easy transition or pivot?
I'm not sure if I can think of that one thing that was really easy. I feel like every decision we labored over as we were trying to figure things out. Probably the easiest one, at least for me, and I'll defer to Billy and Chris, was our decision to offer orientation programming as a virtual program versus inviting families to our campus. So if you recall from your orientation experience, when you were on campus, it was likely filled with a lot of great activities and connections. It was a very different environment virtually, but I think that was an easy decision. We just knew it would be the right thing for our families.
Thank you. When COVID is more under control, will we be offering students new hybrid options for their education?
I think COVID has given us a lot of opportunity to see how education can really flex. So I do think there will be a lot more models available to students. I think there'll be a lot more choice available to students, and that will be important for the future.
Thank you. The next question is, could you elaborate a bit more on the on-campus dining experience for students? Which campus facilities are open? Availability to students? Do they have weekend access, etc.?
So I won't be able to get into all the nuances of our dining operation, but our Snowden Dining Center, Red Sauce has been renamed at the Harborside campus. That's also open. Our two primary Starbucks locations, both at the Down City campus and at the Harborside campus, are open. So there is choice for students, and we're doing a pop-up this year. So for those of you who remember Red Mango in the Bowen Center, that will now be Willie's, and our students are actually doing pop-up restaurants there. So there'll be a lot of choice and new opportunity for them. So we are providing students with the ability to order their meals via a mobile via their mobile device, so it can be ready for them, or they can just grab and go and eat in the dining facility. I see most of our students grabbing and going. We are providing meals over the weekend if that's part of the student's meal plan.
Thank you. Our next question is posed by David. He starts with, thank you for hosting this session. Many institutions are experiencing unexpected silver linings during these challenging times. Do you have an example of one that JWU is especially pleased with?
I think there are two. One is our ability to pivot and move to this virtual environment and to do virtual programming like this that is actually very appealing to our current students, to our alums. So I think that has been really eye-opening. I think the other silver lining is that kind of can-do spirit, right? Where faculty may have been more tenuous about going into an online environment. I think now they're much more confident. So the flexibility that we're introducing into the academic program is so significant. And I think that helps position the university for the future to build out micro-credentialing programming, to really be able to pivot quickly.
Thank you. The next question, is there anything that has actually worked better or easier during the pandemic than during normal times?
Scheduling meetings over Zoom. That's worked really well. We're all a little zoomed out, but I think just that ability to bring people together really quickly and focus on a particular topic, you're really able to do that on Zoom easily. And I think Zoom keeps you much more connected to your agenda and focused on your agenda, so you can complete on a much quicker, timelier manner.
Thank you. I'd like to remind everyone that they can feel free to use the Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen to send any questions in that they would like to ask. The next question, what do culinary labs look like with social distancing in place?
I'm going to let Dr. O'Clair answer that question.
Thank you, Marie. You wouldn't see much different other than everybody's wearing a mask. We did put up plexiglass barriers where we couldn't maintain the 6 feet of social distancing. I think the faculty are relying a little bit more on ULearn Blackboard to present materials prior to students coming to lab. But the labs are still being run. Now we transitioned the semester, so they probably look more different because of our transition to semesters than they do to COVID. But in some cases we had to reduce the size of the labs a little bit, not a lot. Faculty are just trying to maintain distance between students and distance between themselves and the students as well. But other than that, there really hasn't been a lot of difference. I think the summer really provided us with a good opportunity to almost pilot the way we would be working in the fall. So everybody learned lessons on how to do tasting was a little different, of course, because they can't taste in the lab. So we've put tasting stations out in hallways in some cases. Sometimes the faculty members will take their students outside to do the tastings. And so probably, now that I'm thinking about it, tasting is probably the largest difference. The in-person dining has had to be curtailed somewhat, so we don't have quite the amount of in-person dining, although I have had lunch down at the CCCE building once already this semester, so it is possible, but that's been greatly reduced as well.
Thank you. The next question, how are students adjusting to Zoom classes?
Can we take that one, Marie?
Yes, please. That would be great. Thank you.
So there's as you might expect, there's a variety of answers to that. So many students some of them, especially if they were seniors in high school last year, they got used to Zoom already. So our first year students have adapted very, very well. I think they miss a lot of the interaction that you can have in a classroom when you're face to face, but most have done very well. Some students do find it challenging to be remote, and that's one of the reasons why we mandated that faculty should must have one synchronous session for remote classes. As President Bernardo-Sousa mentioned, many are having both sessions synchronously. So most are doing well. There are some that are struggling. We continue to provide the support for those students that might be struggling a little bit, working with faculty on how to help the students, providing the options to students to have tutoring, or talk to the librarian, or talk to their academic counselor. As you might imagine, as we all are, I think with the COVID pandemic, many of our students are very stressed. And so we're making sure that we're keeping track of their mental health and offering them opportunities to speak with one if they're finding that struggle. But I would say the majority of students are doing very well. We are getting ready to do another survey with them in a week or so to check in with them to see how they're doing. The faculty have been reporting good success.
Great, thank you. Marquise says, thanks for hosting this session. How is the university handling health and wellness services, counseling, wellness resources, nursing in this new environment? Is the university expanding telehealth capabilities?
Great question. Hello, Marquise. Good to hear from you. We've done a couple of things with health and wellness. So our health staff, we've actually, as you can well imagine, expanded the number of health service professionals that we have available on our campus. And really that's twofold. There's a huge risk if one of them becomes ill, but also we want to be able to respond to issues with COVID or other issues as quickly as possible. So I mentioned the Elmhurst issue that we had the past week and a half. You know, we were able to start doing sentinel testing for over 300 students in a matter of hours and days, and then be able to take those results and work with them. One of the things that we're finding a benefit of having the screening tool is when a student has that red X, I mentioned that they'll receive a call from our health service professionals. That gives us an opportunity to really understand what's happening with the student and maybe some of those underlying health conditions. So it's not always connected to COVID, it might be something else, and it allows us to make sure that student receives the most appropriate support. Dr. Auclair mentioned, you know, everyone's feeling a level of anxiety, and some are responding to that better than others. Our personal counselors have been doing a lot of telehealth. So we've even been able to expand their licensure. So many states are giving reciprocity for state licensures so that if you happen to be licensed in Rhode Island, you can provide telehealth counseling to a student who is in Connecticut, although you're not licensed in Connecticut. So that has been a great benefit. I think the other aspect that's been really critical is our care committee on campus. So we're able to identify students who might be at risk, not adjusting as well, and come together as a campus community to provide the right support structures that student receives the appropriate level of assistance to be successful on campus.
Great, thank you. What do you foresee for the spring semester?
Yeah, so we'll be announcing it later this week, so you guys get a preview. I hope we can keep it confidential amongst us. We anticipate that we'll be starting the spring semester later. We will be inviting more of our students back to campus. So we had planned to start our spring semester January 11th. We'll be pushing that back to January 19th. We will likely cancel our spring break because we don't want students traveling out of state and then bringing the virus back to our campus. And then we will be able to conclude the semester on our regular scheduled completion date. And that would allow us to have commencement. And so commencement's a big open question. You know, we're not certain what the state mandates will look like for social gatherings. We are planning for an in-person commencement. We're planning for a virtual commencement. I think we have 5 different plans that we're evaluating right now. And so much of that will be dictated by what the state mandates are.
Thank you. This looks like it would be our last question, potentially. So if there was an on-campus resident who tested positive, what would be the process or procedure for handling that particular case?
So unfortunately, we've had to deal with that, at least on a couple of occasions. When a student does test positive, they are moved to isolation. So they are asked to pick up their things that they need in an overnight bag. We move them into our isolation space. In that isolation space, all of their meals are delivered to them so they don't have to leave their room. Someone from health services is in contact with the student on a daily basis to check in on their well-being, and hopefully they're recovering or asymptomatic. Once they've completed their quarantine and they have no symptoms, they're out of quarantine. Our faculty have been tremendous. So we talked about the importance of being able to provide students with a high flex educational model. And when a student has to quarantine, they will be able to do much of their work remotely and connect. So our health services team contacts our faculty and deans so that we can work in supporting that student in meeting their academic objectives.
Great, thank you. If anyone has any last questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A section at the bottom of the screen. Okay. Well, I'd like to thank you, President Bernardo-Sousa, Provost Auclair, and Chris Harwood for such an informative presentation and Q&A session. Your leadership, especially during these challenging times, keeps us focused on our students and providing them with an exceptional education. We know times are still tough for many of our alumni. Our students and their families are also facing many of the same challenges. If you are in a position to give back today, please make a gift of any amount directly to the JWU Emergency Fund, which provides direct and immediate assistance to our Wildcats. We've shared the link in the chat window for your convenience. We're in this together, and we will get through this together, because that's the Wildcat way. Thank you in advance for your generosity. We sincerely hope that you enjoyed today's session, Preparing the Campus During COVID-19 Lessons Learned, part of the JWU Connects family of programming. Through JWU Connects, alumni can engage in informative and interesting discussions related to professional development topics, as well as opportunities for networking and connection with fellow classmates and faculty. For the full listing of upcoming events, please visit the alumni event calendar at alumni.jwu.edu. We appreciate your attendance and wish you a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much for participating.
Thank you.